What do you look like? What do you do when you are at your best?
Mm-hmm.
When you're the best version of yourself, who are you?
What are you doing?
Then capture that.
Mm.
Perhaps your purpose is there.
Welcome to episode 33 of the Let Me Save You 25 Years podcast. I am your host, Shawn D. Nelson. We go deep each week on some Shawnism. Originally came from my book called Let Me Save You 25 Years. Hope you love this. We have a great Shawnism today to unpack. Play full out. I mean, when was the last time you did something half-assed? You know, halfway. How proud of it were you? How'd that work out for you? What was the end result? Well, this week we jump into the concept of play full out with my special guest, Hubert Joly, who has made a career of reviving companies that have lost their sense of purpose and forgotten how to play full out. Former CEO of Best Buy, Harvard professor. He's amazing. We talk about identifying your own purpose, the importance of making sure that you and every single team member believes in their purpose, the meaning of crucible moments, and why it's so important to recognize when these crucible moments are happening in our lives, how coaching a team of 8-year-old soccer players actually has a lot of similarities to running a business of over 1,000 employees, and why Hubert says it means nothing to be the richest person in the cemetery. There's a ton to take away from my discussion with Hubert Joly on this topic of play full out. So here we go. Check it out. I am so excited about our topic today, play full out. It's one of these lessons that I think the best leaders learn and exhibit. And who better to unpack this with me today than Hubert Joly, the former CEO of a little company called Best Buy, where he tripled its value in his tenure there. Former CEO of Carlson, an international hotel and hospitality juggernaut, a long history as a leader and author of his own book, The Heart of Business, which is fantastic, and really excited to dig into this. Welcome, Hubert.
Shawn, and congratulations to you for all of your successes and your partnership with Best Buy. So everybody, you can get your product Love Sack at Best Buy. So here you have it.
That's right. BestBuy.com, believe it or not. Yeah. And that's what's cool is this conversation didn't even come out of that. Yeah. We got spun up at Best Buy right at the end of Hubert's tenure. Yeah.
But I can claim no credit for it.
Well, you can. I mean, it was actually right at the end of your time there, but your team did a great job onboarding a little wiry company called Love Sack. And now we're up to 55 shop-in-shops that we actually operate on your soil. Yeah. It's been very successful from our point of view. And we sell a lot of stealth tech. These are the surround sounds. So anyways, it's a lot of fun to be in Best Buy. Yeah. But all right, Hubert. So without any prep, without thinking too hard, when you heard the topic, play full out, what's the first thing that came to mind?
Oh, it reminds me, there's so many facets of my life that where it resonates. And we'll talk about some of them at Best Buy, where we had the phrase to be all in, which I think was a big part of how we drove the turnaround and resurgence of Best Buy.
Love it.
But it also reminds me of anytime I would take a new job, and oftentimes I've been parachuted at the top of companies, not always in great shape. Mm-hmm. And, the first few weeks and first few months, really diving into developing a diagnosis of the situation and then working with the team to create a plan and being all in, right? Full out, driving a turnaround, a transformation. And so the beautiful intensity and strength, the power that being all in provides. And I remember, for example, the first time, so I started my career with McKinsey & Company. Mm-hmm. Spent 12 years there, wonderful experience. And then after 12 years, I decided that this was not what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Mm. And quite classically, a client of mine, EDS, asked me to join their company and to be the president of EDS France. I was 35 or 36. I had never ran anything.
Right out of consulting. That's a big leap.
And I knew them a little bit because they had been my client, but I had no idea whether I could be a good leader. It was remarkable that they trusted me.
Wow.
But what a fun memory. This was a challenging situation. France was a difficult market for EDS at the time. But with the team, we dove in and we managed in short order to create momentum, triple the size of the company, and in 3 years, which was remarkable, and created so much energy, so that I could see the power of diving in. And same when I became the CEO of a video games company in Los Angeles in 1999, or of course all the way to when I became the CEO of Best Buy. So I've experienced the power of full out, all in. I've also experienced, I think there's a shadow side, which is that if you dive too completely, especially us the men, it can narrow your view.
Interesting.
And create damages along the way, both in yourself, where you're not taking care of yourself. And you can be sometimes oblivious to people around you who may not have the same energy and the same. So I've learned that there can be a shadow side. And then when we were at Best Buy, maybe we'll get to that. I learned a better way to be all in, but maybe we'll get to that.
No, this is perfect. This is amazing. Yeah, all in, full out. Pick your prepositional phrase. I think for me, they can absolutely mean the same thing. I coached. Okay, so I'll give you a completely dissociated example. I coached my son's soccer team, and these at the time when we started were 8-year-olds.
Yes.
Really cute kids, but as a CEO and building a business that at the time was also doubling and tripling.
Yep.
You and I have both experienced that. Me only one time.
I'm older than you, Shawn.
Well, I don't know. I've been at this a long time, but you've had an amazing career. And by the way, you've always doubled and tripled the businesses you've gone to. What an amazing track record.
Thank you.
Legitimately amazing. Like, congratulations, you won. But I wanted to teach this.
To be clear, this was, for example, at Best Buy with the help of 125,000 of my best friends, right? Let's be clear.
Of course. And there's no doubt about that. But regardless, your resume speaks for itself. But even at their formative age of 8 years old, I wanted to, more than anything, I wanted to teach these kids to win. And I don't mean, I don't care about winning soccer games. I just mean the mindset of winning. And so I had 2 rules with them. It was maximum effort. Like, I don't care what we're doing. If you see me taking the bag of balls out of the trunk, you're going to run up to me and say, "Coach, how can I help?" Yeah. At practice on a Tuesday in 100-degree Southern Utah weather, you're going to go hard. Yeah. Like, it's only 90 minutes. Like, you're going to be all in. You're going to play full out. Yeah. Maximum effort. And the second rule, a winning attitude, which I try to teach them meant, I don't care what the odds are. I don't care how good that other team is. We are going to win this game. Now, somewhere lurking, there is always the possibility of losing. And by the way, that happens a ton in sports. It happens to the best teams.
Yes.
But I learned that from Coach Urban Meyer, who I got to have on the podcast. Like, the attitude is, we're going to win. Yeah. End of story. Yeah. And what's amazing is when that truly is your attitude, and you can adopt that mindset with full belief, usually you win. Yes. And so I tried to bequeath that on the kids, but for me, both of those are ingredients to this idea of being all in, playing full out. And I am super intrigued now with the dark side that you experienced. But before we get to that, because I think that'll be fun to unpack, let's talk just a little bit about what playing full out really looks like. You've had the chance to do it in a number of organizations and see the effects of it, going all in. Talk to me about, from your seat as a leader, because you've been the CEO so many times, what do you see from your teammates when they're all in, when they're playing full out?
And maybe I can talk about the best of that, which is what I saw at Best Buy, which didn't have the dark side I was referring to, that we'll come back to.
Okay, cool.
The And I love your soccer discussion. I think if you Google what are 10 things that don't cost anything, right, don't require any skills and that you can expect of people, like showing up on time, having this positive attitude and so forth. I think these are powerful ideas. I think for us, and I learned so much from my colleagues, from Corey, who's now the CEO, from Sherry Ballard, from Jason, who you work with at the company. It starts from within, and clarity about what drives you. Who are you? Being aware of who you are, your unique genius, your unique capabilities, also your sometimes your dark side, but all of these good things. And what drives you? What's going to make you happy in life? How do you want to be remembered? So having clarity, and that's a question we ask all of the associates and store general managers at Best Buy. What drives you? I also had a store general manager. He would ask everyone in his store, so about 100 people on average in a Best Buy store, what is your dream? At Best Buy, outside of Best Buy, what is your dream?
Yeah.
He said, all right, let's write it down in the break room.
Wow.
My job is to help you achieve your dream. So it starts with having clarity about what is our dream. And it's not just about business, not just about the brain. I think that's one of the things I've learned in the last 10 or 15 years is that as leaders, we need to lead with all of our body parts. The brain, of course, but also the heart, the soul, the guts, the ears, the eyes, and being this full person. And so starting with almost the heart, right? The title of my book is The Heart of Business. I love Khalil Gibran, the Lebanese poet, who wrote, "Work is love made visible." Work is love made visible. So if you see every human being on the team as a human being, not just as an employee, right? And if you see all of the stakeholders, right? We're here at Conscious Capitalism, we can talk about stakeholders as other human beings, and then trying to determine, based on your purpose in life, how you're going to touch them. What difference do you want? You may be going through a crisis, right? We've all gone through crisis. COVID was a big one for Best Buy. How are we going to navigate that? So that clarity of purpose and values. And then, to your point about winning, it's increasingly hard to control the outcome because there's so many, there's a poly crisis every day, right?
Oh, man.
So believing we can control the outcome, I think it's no, but we can be our best. We can give it our best shot. We can be the best version of ourselves. And we can do that, be that now. Talking about winning, I remember listening to Roger Federer in a commencement speech. And he was asking the students, when he was winning matches, on average, what percentage of the points would he win? And we cannot ask the audience here, but I'm going to tell you the answer. I think it's 53% or 54%.
I remember that interview.
And that's beautiful because that means that you're going to lose 45%. But then whether you've lost the previous points or won it, it's all about the next point.
It's just about, it's only about the next point.
Because, and the other thing I would say is that, it's being all in the moment.
Yeah.
There's only 2 days in the year, Shawn, where there's nothing that you can do. Only 2 days.
What are those?
Yes, I could ask you, right? What are they? And they are yesterday and tomorrow.
Got it.
But today, I can be all in. I can be the best version of myself. And at the end of the day, I'm going to ask myself, did I do my best? Right? That's what I learned from my coach, Marshall Goldsmith. Did I do my best today to be the best leader I could be? And if I was not, it's important that I be able to forgive myself. Right? Because there's always tomorrow, and I can try harder tomorrow. So this is not about the best way to calculate a net present value or what's the most efficient way to organize a supply chain. These are things from the heart. And if you're all in with in a sense, your soul, right? Because this is all the soul and the heart, it's contagious.
Absolutely.
Right? Because then if you have a spring in your step, right? I think of the CEO as the chief energizing officer, right? To create energy so that you can lift And whether you're the CEO, I mean, everybody's a CEO. You're the CEO of your life. You're CEO of your team.
I say the same thing.
And, on your team, in a store, I've seen so many beautiful things in a Best Buy store. Teams that are so inspiring, and they're here to be the best version of themselves and do something good in the world, right? So now maybe I'll finish with this. It starts with a point of view, which is in the heart of every individual, every one of us, there is a strong desire to do something good to somebody else and be better, right? Even Darth Vader, his son believes the Force is still in him, right? So that tells you. And so if you start with that mindset that I'm here to do something good to other people and be the best I can be, you see beautiful things happen. That's what I've learned.
I love that. And it's so cool hearing it from, the leader of a big company, because I think it's so easy for people out there to sort of assign the soulless, faceless, machine of big corporations, kind of that, a moniker to companies the size of Best Buy or bigger. And it was cool. John Mackey, founder of Whole Foods, who I also got to interview, said from the stage here, look, as I see it, people need two things, right? He's speaking about his employees and partners. They need purpose. They need to understand how what they're doing aligns with something good in the world. Like it's not just slaving away for a paycheck or to sell more consumer electronics. Like there has to be a purpose beyond that. And number two, they have to feel loved. Yeah. They have to feel love in their life. People want to feel that. People want to feel like you give a crap. Yeah. And I think you're reflecting obviously these same principles. And so it's really cool to hear from two different points of view from very large, some of the largest retailers in the country, leaders from some of the largest retailers. And of course, like love is in my name at Lovesac. That's right. Right. Like we have to try to live up to that as our core philosophy. And one thing you said that is important, I think, to dig into, because I say this a lot as well, and this is the point of my podcast, is that we all learn the same lessons. Like you came up a completely different way through consulting and then big business CEO. I came up as a bootstrapper, that did VC, private equity, now public, and thankfully I get to still do it. But we've learned the same lessons, and it came back to, as I heard you, starts with self-awareness, like understanding your own purpose, understanding what drives you, who you are, your strengths and weaknesses, and being candid about those all the way. I love that you mentioned you're a coach. Here you are, a public company CEO and humble enough to have a coach, a mentor, et cetera. There's a lesson in that. And then uncovering others' purposes and being bold enough, because look, it can be scary for an employer or for a manager or a leader of any kind to go there with their employees, let's say, because, well, if they all discover their purpose, they're going to leave. They're going to go do their own thing. But that's not necessarily true. And by the way, if it becomes true, good for them. Yeah. But the truth is, there are thousands and millions of people who are perfectly happy and fulfilled to be part of something. And I mean that with the most love. Yeah. And we should not hide from the fact that they are humans with a purpose, and it's okay to vocalize that, and then, of course, to help them achieve it, whatever it is. And usually it works out for everyone.
It's such an important conversation. And it's interesting, at many companies, you rarely have a conversation about purpose, your own purpose.
Why?
The purpose of people, because we've been trained. So I grew up last century. Right? The model of leadership in the 20th century, in the 1980s and 1990s, was the leader as a superhero, smartest person in the room, is there to tell other people what to do. Right, and we all. Certainly, I grew up with Jack Welch as he was the man of the century.
Yeah, totally.
And so it's a very different approach. And through reflection and my life story and my life journey, my leadership journey, I've asked the question about why are we here? What's the purpose of our life? What's the purpose of our leadership? And I've learned that a company is a human organization made of individuals working together in pursuit of a goal, and that profit is really important. It's an imperative.
Yeah.
And you're taking care of the retirees in this country, so really important.
Yeah.
But there's something bigger. There's this higher purpose that conscious capitalism talk about, and that I believe so much. And so it's a different mindset. And I'll tell you a very concrete story, Shawn, of a pivotal moment in our story at Best Buy. So we had, there was a first phase. I joined the company in 2012. Everybody thought at the time the company was going to die, and so we had to focus on fixing what was broken. There was a turnaround phase. It was very energizing. But after 3 or 4 years, we said, okay, so turnaround is over. We need to think about, what kind of company do we want to build?
Right.
What do we want to look like when we grow up? How do we accelerate our growth? And so at that time, like before, we would, every quarter we would get together as an executive team. You probably do this with your team to take a look at where we are and our plans, our ambitions. And during one of these offsites, we asked everyone on the executive team to come to the offsite with a picture of themselves when they were little. So we got some really cute pictures, as you can imagine. Mm-hmm. And then we spent the evening over dinner doing 2 things. One was sharing our life story with each other and sharing our purpose in life with each other. We spent the evening doing that. And we had been working together for a while then, but this was a very moving moment because we discovered a couple of things. One, everyone on the executive team was a human being.
Right.
Complicated, quirky, messy, sometimes beautiful, always human being. Not just a CFO or CMO or CHRO.
Yeah.
And then 2, everybody on the team, with a couple of exceptions perhaps, had the same kind of goal in life. Do something good to somebody else. And so that led us to step back and say, look, we're the leadership team of Best Buy. And forget about whether it's an executive team or a team in a store, right? We're the executive team of Best Buy in this particular case. Yeah. We can use this platform to build an organization that we would love to work at, that employees would love to work at, that customers would love to shop with, that communities would love to have us in, that shareholders would love to invest in. And note how I use the word love, right? Which is, and that was transformative because the job now, all of a sudden, it's not just a job, it's a calling. We can make a huge difference. And that unleashed a second phase in our journey.
Wow.
Where we work on our purpose as a company, a much more ambitious strategy, shaping a very human culture, and that unlocked a great deal of potential. So starting with this question of personal purpose and then bringing it to the company level, that's very powerful.
I think it's fundamental. For us at Lovesac, we have what I call a strategic guide that is pivotal to the success we've had. Yeah. And at the top of this graphic that's in a pyramid shape is purpose, right? As I think any company probably should be. But but underneath that, you're right, ladders up to it. Yeah. All of these human beings that whether they're aware of it or not, whether they've taken the time to unearth it or not, are driven by something and can be driven in a more focused way if they take the time to understand. So in my book, I call that little Shawnism, know yourself and know your purpose. Yeah. And that applies to both the individual and the company. But the part that I wanted to just hone in on there is it sounds to me, so, and we'll come back to the specifics in the example of Best Buy. But you said something about the purpose and how it began to take on this notion of just being a great place to work, a member of the community, a great place for you and me, and people make money, and even the retirees. Like as a public company, a lot of people don't connect the dots that you are stewarding,
of course,
value for these mega funds like Voya or whatever your 401k is held, Vanguard, take your pick, that people rely on for maybe the last couple decades of their life.
That's exactly right.
And you're a steward of that.
It's a big responsibility.
It's a big responsibility. And so the point I wanted to dig in on is you have these vast realms of capital management, like you described, and linking it to retirees, down to the individual, blue shirt, sometimes as they're called at Best Buy, on the front lines, slinging TVs.
Yeah.
And they all are stakeholders and they all matter. And then you pair it back to maybe people listening to this podcast who, look, their business might be they're a plumber, or they are even more banal than that. You can find, there's a million ways to make $1 million, or to have a job and contribute to society. And some of them are not very glamorous. Some of them are, they're laying pavement. And my point being, some of these businesses or organizations, small companies, even individuals, can find purpose in what they're doing at the meta level. And what I mean by that is, if you don't view laying paving as very life-changing or critical to the world, even though, by the way, we could all make arguments about roads and how much they mean or something like that, you can find purpose in building an organization that provides a great living to your employees, provides a great living to your own family, if it's a 1 or 2 person operation, provides a great lifestyle for you and your business partner. Mm-hmm. And I would challenge you to not give up on finding a purpose because you don't have something as glamorous as, say, Lovesac, because we make things that could be with you the rest of your life. I told you about some of my couch pieces are older than my children. And I think it's so cool that I can add new pieces on anytime. But we stumbled into that. We didn't have that purpose when we invented it. We were just trying to make a couch that could ship in a box. But along the way, we made, and so fast forward to today, we've uncovered our stated purpose of inspiring humankind to buy better stuff so they can buy less stuff. And that's a very animating purpose to our whole organization. And it attracts a certain kind of person who wants to be part of something like that. But that's a purpose that is as far-reaching as that is not in the cards for every kind of organization. So what advice do you have for people that, they hear the advice over and over again from people like you and I that write books on this topic? It's so popular now. Find your purpose. But you think, I'm a dental hygienist. And of course, eliminating tooth pain is actually a big deal. But if you don't find that inspiring, even to yourself, any tips on how you find your own purpose and find that for your organization? Yeah,
so the starting point, I think, is at the individual level, right? Defining your purpose in life, which may have nothing to do with anything in business, right? It's oftentimes going to be a bit about, touching other people. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's when we ask all of the store general managers at Best Buy what drove them, sometimes it was their team, their community, their church, their sports team, their family.
Yeah. Just totally unrelated to
And that's great. So find, what is your, what is it that you want to be in the world and accomplish in the world? And that's a process, it requires a lot of self-reflection on who you are and what drives you and what gives you energy, what you're passionate about, what you're uniquely good at, right? What is your unique genius? I think, by the way, one of the things I learned from my colleague Sherry Ballard at Best Buy was, a responsibility as a leader is to help the individuals identify their unique genius and then help them be the biggest, most beautiful version of themselves.
So you could hire a facilitator. You could go on a journey of self-discovery to really ask hard questions. Any other tips on how do you uncover it?
So that's at the individual level. Mm-hmm. At the business level, let's be clear. I was leading a program at HBS yesterday with a bunch of CEOs. Focusing on purpose is not necessarily the most important or right thing to do at a given point in time. Because over time, as a leadership team, you're going to have to, focus on purpose, but also strategy, culture, execution. Mm-hmm. If you're concerned about making payroll next month, this is not about purpose, Christian. Yeah. When I joined in 2012 at Best Buy, it was about saving the company. We didn't start with purpose. We started with, and we asked the frontliners, they had all of the answers. tell us what's working, what's not working, what do you need. I spend my in terms of concrete tips, I spent my first week on the job working in a store in St. Cloud, Minnesota, an hour and a half north of Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And the frontliners had all of the answers, and our job was easy.
By the way, huge lesson just in that.
Yeah.
Huge leadership lesson.
Listen.
You went to the front lines.
Yeah.
You put in the time.
Yeah.
You worked and you listened.
Yeah.
That's the only transition method that works, by the way, if you're ever starting anything new.
Yeah. And so my job was easy. Was show up, ask the questions, listen, take notes, and make sure that we did something with what they had told us. So we didn't, for the first 3 or 4 years, we didn't spend any time on purpose.
By the way, was that did that take a lot of discipline? You have a company that's in some amount of duress.
Yeah.
And rather than go right into, hey, grab the wheel, turn it 180 degrees, captain of the ship.
Oh, my biggest advantage, Shawn, there's another leadership lesson here. I knew nothing about retail.
Wow.
And that was actually my biggest advantage. And ironically, in one of the cases we teach at the business school is Ron Johnson at JCPenney. Ron Johnson, very successful at Target, and then Apple, was recruited by JCPenney.
Yeah.
He was a god in retail. And when he talked to our students, he said that his biggest mistake was what he called situational arrogance, because he knew so much. He felt, he could go in and tell people what to do. Yeah. My biggest advantage is I knew nothing, so I had no choice. I had to ask. Yeah. I had experience with turnarounds and things like this, but in terms of the specifics, I had to ask. And so this was really, really important. And I had worked on myself to know that my role as a leader was not to be the smartest person in the room, but be more, I use the metaphor of a gardener. Right, so I'm not a gardener, but I've watched. Right, so in gardening, there's landscaping. You need to set the frame, but then it's all about making sure the soil is fertile and that the greens, the green shoots, the seeds can grow and produce something. And so that was my role. Right, listen and work with the team to co-create the diagnosis, co-create the plan, and then get going, and then celebrate our victories and. Be able to ask for help. A big thing I had to work on as a leader was to be able to say, my name is Hubert, and I don't know. My name is Hubert, and I need help.
Wow.
So it was only after 3 or 4 years that we focused on the purpose. And there's two types of situations related to the corporate purpose. One is well-established companies, very successful. They've never articulated their purpose, but it's there. And it's a matter of crystallizing it.
Yeah. Just like Lovesac. We didn't have that stated purpose I mentioned. We stumbled into it after observing how people lived with our products for many, many years. And so had we written in stone what our purpose was very early, we probably would have gotten it wrong.
It's a matter of capturing, the needs in the world you're addressing, what you're passionate about as a team, what you're uniquely good at, of course, how you can make money, but it's a matter of crystallizing who you are already when you're at your best, and writing it down actually is very impactful.
Yeah.
But then there's a different kind of situation, which was more the situation we had at Best Buy. It was more a refoundation of the company. We needed to reinvent in that second phase after the turnaround.
Because it was a different reality. It was a different decade.
Because big box retailing had been invented in the 80s and 90s. And, it worked for a while, but sometimes you need to reimagine. And we reimagined Best Buy around a higher purpose, which was to enrich lives through technology, which doesn't mean you're going to do it in a store.
Yeah.
And there you need to more profoundly look at, again, it's these ideas. What are the needs, right? What are the unmet needs in the world that you want to address, but not be bound? That's a big lesson by the way you've been operating. So if we had said in that second phase, we want to be the best consumer electronics retailer, that limits what you can do. If you say, no, we're here to enrich lives through technology, there's a whole range of things, of course, we talk about it in the heart of business, that we can get into, including, the in-home advisors, right? If your need is too complex and you're familiar with them because you work with Best Buy, like a designer, will come to your home.
Yeah.
We cannot have a conversation in the store or online. We have to come to you and understand your needs, how you want to, if you're redoing your family room, what kind of, how do you want to experience it? And then we'll create a proposal And then you can always say no, but if you say yes, we'll make it happen. Or some things we're doing in healthcare for the aging population and so forth. So it unlocked a huge set of growth opportunities. So the lessons is it's not always the right time to focus on purpose. Two, very different if it's crystallizing something that's there or reimagining something that could be.
Yeah.
And then all of the work is on putting it to work and creating the conditions that it can unleash human magic.
Yeah.
So it needs to touch everybody in the organization,
Yes.
and that's a journey. That's not a moment.
Because once you do have it and you feel confident that you've articulated it correctly, back to Lovesac, inspire humankind to buy better so they can buy less. Well, incumbent in that phrase is all kinds of things that then shape how we behave, right? Like we have to make the better.
Yeah.
So now we can't make junk.
Yep.
We've committed to that, as long as we're committed to that purpose. And the purpose can be pliable. It could change maybe every decade or so.
Yeah.
If you get it right, hopefully it doesn't have to. Yeah. Hopefully it can persist for decades. Yeah. That's how you know if it's right, is if you feel the need to change it. And if I can go back to the individual side, because I think there was something key there that you pulled out. I love that your tactical suggestion was start at the individual level and go through that exercise. And that's painful because here everyone's been told, go find a business go find a purpose for your business. Rewind, take the time like you did on the front lines, work on yourself. Yeah. Understand your purpose, encourage your teams to unearth theirs. And let me offer one tip there, because I do have something I've reflected on that helped me find my own purpose. Shawn is different from Lovesac. As great as Lovesac is, and I'm the CEO, whatever, I'm the Lovesac guy. I am also a human being on the earth, and I've done the work to kind of articulate.
So what is your purpose, Shawn? Tell us.
So my purpose is to create environments where people that are uplifting and inspiring to people. Oh. And the way I got there, let me tell you how I got there, because I think there's a lesson in this for any of us, because it can be hard for people. Like, how do I find my purpose? I got to go on a backpacking trip to like Nepal or something. Here's where it came from. I thought about just where I'm the happiest, what I love doing. Naturally. Like if I could do anything, where do I just feel really free and happy?
What gives you energy? Yeah.
And you know where that was?
Yeah.
It was boating. Okay. I don't mean yachting. I mean just wakeboarding, water skiing. Yeah. I grew up in Utah. We didn't have the ocean. We had lakes. Yes. And I was like, man, I love that vibe. But when I really thought about it, I had friends who were pro wakeboarders who could do flips and tricks. And I was never really that competitive. I didn't care. I mean, I would do tricks and I said, wait, that's weird. Like, it's not that I'm passionate about wakeboarding or wake surfing or water skiing, really. It's more just being out there on the boat with my friends. I'll drive, I'll play the music, I'll wakeboard, I'll take my turn, but I'm not interested in doing tricks. What my point is, and when I really drilled down into that, I realized you drop me in the water off the trailer, you come down to the dock to get on the boat. I've already got, the music has to be going. It has to be the right playlist at the right volume. The drinks are already in the cooler. I wouldn't make you do that. I won't make you wipe down my boat after. I want you to just if you're coming with me that morning, it's like, dude, that was the best time ever. And when I realized underneath that, it wasn't even boating. It was creating an environment that people felt inspired.
And Shawn, do you know where it's coming from?
Tell me.
No, I'm asking you.
Oh, do I know where it's coming from? You mean like within me?
Yeah.
I'm just telling you that is my purpose. Like I got to what my primary motivation is as a human on the earth, as a unique human, through observing my behavior on a boat. Totally unrelated. Yeah. But now extrapolate that. I get to open showrooms. Yeah. I get to open showrooms inside of Best Buys that I control and create the environment. I get to build a household with 4 little kids and decide how they're going to grow up. And so for me, once I uncovered that, I was able to then focus my energy and efforts both in my personal life and in business on those things. And then, by the way, in business, allow the other experts to do the other things because they're way better than me at all of those things.
Yeah. So identifying what gives us energy in our life is essential. There is another dimension, looking for tips, right, to uncover your purpose.
Yes, I think it's powerful.
And I give credit to Bill George, my good friend from Minnesota, former CEO of Medtronic, now been a professor at HBS for the last 20 years. In his books about True North, he talks about these crucible moments in our lives, which are often painful moments, searing moments that shaped us. Because there's what gives us energy, but also what has hurt us or what has drained us. And I love the word crucible because it has the image of shaping us. It's a branding moment.
Yes.
And identifying when you revisit your life, identifying both these moments that give you energy, but also the moments that you said, oh my God, this is painful. I don't want to see this repeated.
Yeah.
So I'll take an example in my case. So the way I've defined my purpose today, it's to unleash human magic. Unleash it in myself, unleash it in people around me.
I love that.
Unleashing it in leaders that I spend time with so that they can unleash more magic in the world. When I reflect on my life, I remember I was a 15-year-old young boy. I was once 15 years old.
I can believe it.
Yeah. And like many of us, I was working during a summer to buy a bike, what have you. And I was working in a supermarket in France. And I remember the impression I had that my experience was so dull.
Yeah.
I never saw a manager. There was no purpose. I was putting, sticker prices on vegetable cans.
The time would drag.
And this was so draining. And I remember very vividly, and this was 50 years ago, right? If I said one day, if I'm in a position of power, authority, and to influence things, I want to make sure that I get to shape an environment for frontliners where there's more joy, where there's more happiness and more growth and more meaning.
Wow.
And I think that if I look at my life, that's what I've been doing. And my job at Best Buy, one of the reasons what gives me so much joy, yes, the share price went from $11 to $100, fine.
Wow.
But it's the impact, the memories, how I've made the employees feel based on what they've told me.
Yeah.
That I can take with me to the tomb.
Yeah.
The rest, my banking account, do I want to be the richest person in the cemetery?
Sure.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's beautiful.
So crucible moments is something to watch for.
Yes, I
and
love
then
this.
trying to connect that with what does that mean? Because then it's something I cannot help but be this person who seeks to unleash human magic because there's, in a sense, this wound from 50 years ago that I felt deeply for the tens of millions of people who are on the front lines and are not respected, they're not loved, they don't have the opportunity for meaning and so forth.
Yeah, another coach I had articulated the same kind of idea in the language of a turning point. Can you identify like a turning point in your life? I think it's very similar to this idea of crucible moments. So I think for those listening, two very useful, very real tactics to get to this elusive purpose. Because everyone talks about purpose. But I don't think there's enough discussion on how do you get there.
Yes.
So look for those, look for what truly gives you energy and try and discover meaning in it. Make sure you understand it.
Yes.
It wasn't wakeboarding, it was the environment. Number two, look for those crucible moments.
Yes.
Great advice.
And the last one I would add, because it's such a positive idea, is what do you look like? What do you do when you are at your best? When you're the best version of yourself, who are you?
What are you doing?
Then capture that. Perhaps your purpose is there.
Yeah, I love that. And by the way, where people go off the rails a little bit is when they go through that exercise and they say, I need to be a professional wakeboarder. Right? That's a misinterpretation.
That's right. Yes.
Because I really had to think deeply about it.
It's
Otherwise,
in service of what?
I would have quit my job and gone and been and by the way, there can be a lot of misery. There's a lot of working musicians who end up hating music. There's a lot of lawyers who hate the practicing law. And so just because you're intrigued, for instance, or a great debater, you could go to get a law degree, but that doesn't necessarily mean you should be a lawyer. And so I think like this self-discovery is at the root of everything. And that's why I'm constantly harping, probably every podcast episode I say, the root of all of it is self-awareness.
Yes, absolutely.
At the root
That's
of
beautiful.
all
You're underscoring some critical points here, Shawn.
I mean, these are, to me, they're just fundamental truths. And by the way, this is why I love these conversations, because we just met, but we learn the same lessons.
Yeah.
We just, through the crucible of life and intense experiences like being a CEO or building a company or whatever. And that's the blessing of taking on hard things, is that you get forced upon you these learnings.
So true.
Let's talk about playing full out in other realms. So how do you play full out, Hubert, as a friend, we've talked about as a boss, as a co-worker, maybe not a leader. Like, how do you play full out? Because you're a human. You're a grandfather. Yeah. How do you play full out in other realms?
I think maybe the most important lesson I've learned here, it's all about being present. And that's true for, being all in and full out with a friend, but the same would be true for a spouse. The same would be true also for a coworker, any other human being that you have a relationship with. Being present, again, not necessarily to be the smartest person in the room, but to be at their side. This friend may be going through a challenge. I have somebody very close to me who over the summer went through a very significant health challenge. I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert at this, but being present, going to see the various physicians and appointments we had at the hospital, being able to feel what this person was going through.
Being
there, not judging, being supportive. And maybe a way I learned that lesson was with my granddaughters. To what extent, Shawn, do my granddaughters care about what I do as a CEO at the business? They couldn't care less.
They don't care.
They couldn't care less. But being present and being able to, help them ride their bicycle, read a story, be goofy, just being present. This may have been one of the hardest things I had to learn because I'm always running. I want to always do the next thing. I briefly alluded to the dark side of being all in. In my case, it's the quest for perfection. I thought that needed to be perfect, which can make me inhuman. Right?
Unlikable.
Because
I lived a little bit of that.
Yeah. Many of us suffer from that disease. And if I confuse perfection and performance, that means, I'm not going to like myself because here's the scoop, I'm not perfect. Importantly, I'm not going to appreciate people around me because they are these quirky, messy, complicated human beings, imperfect.
Yeah.
And that can make me blind and completely insensitive.
Wow.
If I don't. So fortunately, with some help, I was able to overcome, to a large degree, not 100%, that disease. And so, but that was, I was always running for the quest for perfection. Once I can, back to self-awareness, after self-awareness, there's self-acceptance and there's self-compassion. The hardest person to love may be ourselves.
Yeah.
And if I can accept who I am, and then I can be in the moment and be all in the moment, and we connect deeply, whether it's a friend, a granddaughter, or a spouse.
Hubert Joly, check out his book, The Heart of Business, and a lecturer at Harvard. And if you're lucky enough to fall into his orbit or absorb his wisdom on podcasts like this or YouTube or whatnot, any other places people can find you, connect with you?
LinkedIn is a good place, and you can always, apply to one of the executive education programs I'm running at the business school. We'd love to host you, and the privilege of being on the journey of other leaders and learning from them and seeing how they are transforming the world. That's a huge joy for me. So that's the only reason why I'm mentioning that.
I love it. Coming from a repeat CEO of multinationals, Play full out. If you don't, you might take 25 years like I did trying to figure it out. Thank you, Hubert.
Thank you, Shawn.
Once a year to take my friends away should not be the budget for your bike across America.
TikTok has become an aggregator for some of the dumbest human actions.
When I won that million, I was $2 million in debt, barely hanging on.